So when people come and see me, I'm listening to the patterns that have created kind of where they're at. I'm listening to their inner process. There's
Mhm.
no one that can tell me a story about their childhood or about their life that I probably haven't heard yet.
Welcome to the Positively Healthy Mom podcast. I'm your host, Laura Ollinger, teen and young adult well-being coach and founder of Positively Healthy Coaching. I'm so excited to introduce you to my guest today, Stacey Greer, who is a relationship repair coach, speaker, best-selling author, and founder of the Upstream Method and the Family Peace Project. So welcome to the show. I'm super excited to have you, Stacey.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so super excited to be here.
Good. Okay. So let's just jump right in and talk about family conflict.
Okay.
That is a big topic, especially parents with teens and young adults. Man, I mean, my house is generally pretty peaceful, but I feel like there has been a lot of conflict lately, especially with my daughter who's 18. And we're on the edge of she calls herself an adult. And I say, yes, and adult with a little a, not a big A, because you don't, right? You're still under my house. You're still in my care, right? I'm still
Yeah.
your parent. And so we still need to have this kind of collaboration in our relationship. And it's not just you get to do whatever you want, however, right? Like there still has to be this form of we're living together. We're under a roof and we have to get along. So how do you kind of like approach it when you start working with a family as far as where people are coming from as far as the conflict and the communication?
Yeah, where people are coming from is such a great place to start because even as a parent, you're not parenting in a way for no reason. Like you, when you were a child, had experiences and you gave those experiences meaning. And so now when your child does something, you're sometimes reacting from an old wound instead of what's happening in the moment. And so we learn throughout our whole lives how to read and how to write and how to build careers. But it's not very often that we're taught to understand ourselves. Like, how do we understand ourselves? And when we get to understand ourselves, so that's what my whole relationship repair work is about
Mhm.
helping the parent understand themselves and understand where their reaction is coming from, whether it's coming from a fear based or from a love base.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that because what most people don't really realize is that those are kind of the two core emotions.
Yeah.
Kind of every other emotion stems from there, like anger or stress or anxiety, overwhelm, or all these things.
Yes.
So can you talk about that? Because I love that topic.
Yeah, definitely. So the words that you just used is what I would call behaviors. So the anger, the yelling, the slamming doors, whether it's behavior from your child or behavior from the parent, from the mom, that is the last thing that happens as part of this bigger inner process that happens. So before behavior, we have a nervous system that is responding to what triggered us. We have emotional triggers that are telling our nervous system how to respond. And so we also have an identity that we try to believe or try to protect. And we have beliefs that, tell us whether or not something people are doing is true about us or not. So when
Mhm.
your child or your teenager walks away and rolls their eyes and slams the door, that's a behavior. But how does the parent react to that? So
Mhm.
if a parent sees that behavior as something like, oh, my child needs guidance. So that reaction from the parent is coming from a place of love. Or
Mhm.
is that parent thinking, I'm losing control, I'm failing as a parent, and a fear got, injected in them, and then they're responding from a place of, I need to regain control.
Mhm.
So, how the parent reacts to their children's behavior, their teenager's behavior, is very reflective of the parent. And so I always encourage, and the work that I do with parents is helping them go upstream and kind of
Mhm.
find out what their core wounds are and how that's playing out in their parenting today.
Oh, yes. I love it. I mean,
Yeah.
As moms, we're so kind of in the moment and on the go, and it's not normal to typically like reflect deeply on that. Like, what is this instant and build that self awareness, and then
Yes.
piggybacking on that to the emotional regulation, which is what you work on
Yeah.
so much. And so, what would be a starting point for that? Like, how would a mom kind of ask herself these questions?
Yeah, I think like a good question to ask is, what meaning am I giving this moment?
Hmm.
Am I giving this, like, am I here and present with my child's behavior? Is it true that they're being disrespectful? Or
Hmm.
is it true that an old wound in me has been activated? And they'll be able to tell that by asking themselves, what meaning am I giving this moment?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's so important. That's a question I ask my clients quite a bit. Um,
Okay.
with teenagers, they're walking down the hallway at school and they pass somebody who gives them the stink eye, and they think, "Oh, this person doesn't like me, and there's drama, and
Yes.
they have beef with me, whatever that is." And so I typically ask that question, like, "What meaning are you giving this?" And those the meanings
Yes.
that they fill in. What's like, could
Yes.
it be something else? Is it
Yeah.
possible
Yeah.
that maybe that person just was checking their grades for a test and they looked up right when you happen to be walking by? Is it possible that their teacher just yelled at them because they
Yes.
an assignment for the fourth time? Is it possible they just got it? Well, they're not really supposed to have their phones in school, but that they got some type of bad news or bad
Yes.
information, or they got in a fight with their boyfriend or girlfriend. You're walking by, right? And so it's like, I love the idea of just like opening up someone's kind of peripheral vision and understanding that there's in fact, more often than that, it's a different
Yeah.
explanation than to what we're giving it, and therefore it's a different meaning, and therefore we're doing kind of it's just like two different things that don't go together, but we're trying to
Yeah.
make them go together. So, how else does this show up when you're working with? I mean, can you explain actually the type of work that you do with families? Is it primarily the mom? Is it the mom and dad? Is it with the kids? How does it work?
Yeah, as a relationship repair coach, I get all kinds of different dynamics. So I've worked a lot with parents. I've worked as far as how they changing how they parent, as well as on their relationship, because I do believe that change in the home starts with the parents first. I
Yeah.
ask the parents to go first
Yes.
before they expect their child to change.
Hmm.
Or I've also done parent teenager repair
Hmm.
coaching. And I've also done, right now, I actually have a lady who is in her 70s. And I'm also working with a couple of her daughters who are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, um, because they lost contact. One of them went into no contact. And so that bringing that relationship repair back. So
Hmm.
any dynamic that is a relationship, I have definitely worked with. I remember working with this one lady, and her daughter was 15 years old, and it was really sad because she never really felt like she had a safe place to go. She was bullied at school, and her mom and her lived with her grandma, and she was bullied at home by her grandma. And so it was really about empowering this teenager to really pay attention to the meaning she was giving to that, and seeing that her grandma and these people also have an inner upstream process that is happening up from their behavior, which does not, it never is used to excuse behavior. A lot of the work I do is, let's be aware, I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling stressed out. I'm feeling overwhelmed. And I take responsibility for that. So when you take responsibility for your own emotions, then you can communicate and show up more loving with your children or with your husband or whoever it might be.
Mm. Okay, first of all, I have to flag the fact that you said that there was a grandma that was bullying, and I don't
Oh,
think that's the type of thing that you hear every day, but I think that's such a bringing it to people's awareness that a bully is not always who you think it is. It's not always the kid on the playground, or it's not always someone. In fact, it's usually, well, I think they've studies have shown it typically starts in the home,
yeah.
right? And then that's what sets up a person into be that kind of victim
Yes.
mentality, and then they
Yeah.
go out and they're in school and then they're getting bullied, right? And so anyway, I just wanted to flag that because that's not something you hear every day, and I love the idea, just that you are working with families in kind of the older years, because so many that's like a big trend that I hear a lot of, that people are going no contact, right? When
Yes.
older family members just aren't respecting someone's boundaries, or they're just not kind, or whatever it is that they're doing, and they just choose to shut them out of their lives. And so what kind of benefits do you see as far as like repairing that relationship and bringing these people back together?
I mean, it's amazing. It doesn't just always impact the mom and the daughter. It impacts the daughter's children. It impacts the whole family as a whole. And because with this family, I'm working with 3 or 4 of them. They've all learned a new way to communicate, and they have a family business together as well.
Oh, wow.
So they're able to say like, "Mom, I think you're going upstream a bit." And walk alongside her, supporting and loving her while she's not at her best, instead of taking it personally and being mad at her for not being her best. So they're really able to communicate and show up for each other in a different way than they ever have been throughout their whole entire lives. So it's an absolute beautiful thing to witness.
That's amazing, and then
Yeah.
they probably start to feel the fruits of their labor and start to feel that more positive, loving connection with
Yeah.
each other, and so
Yeah.
I'm sure there are many times where they slip back into their old patterns, but then
Yes.
probably cool is they can catch themselves and be like, "Nope,"
Yeah.
right? And then move back into what they've learned. I mean, they always say, people when people know better, they do better, and so now that they've worked with you, they can do better.
Yeah.
I do wanna circle back to something you said, because you talked about a safe place and being a
Yeah.
parent being safe, and I know that that is your mission in
Yes.
the world. Tell us
Yes.
about your mission. Why is this important to you, and how are you living this out?
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for bringing that up. It has been something that's been on my mind for probably over 15 years. I think when I started coaching 15 years ago, I've always wanted to find a way to give back to the community and to give back to people. And, it was a seed that was planted, and it's just been in there germinating until now. I finally have a way that I can give back, and it's called the Family Peace Project.
Mm.
And what that is I have on my website the Family Peace Project website page, and people can go on there and become a peace builder.
Wow.
So they're a part of this mission, helping me in this mission. And as a peace builder, people are saying, I stand for more safety, more compassion, and more love in my own home and in my own communities. So when they sign up as a peace builder, that's their promise to themselves and to the dedication of the Family Peace Project. And for every 1,000 peace builders that I get, I'm going to
Mhm.
be donating a workshop or training to people in need. And you can nominate people or organizations or schools on the Family Peace Project page as well. So the peace builders, anyone can really nominate somebody in need, or like an organization or community that is in need of something like this. But becoming a peace builder, especially if you're part of the first 1,000, you get to vote on who we donate the workshop or the training to. So it's a pretty exciting. I haven't even I'm launching it for the first time right here right now.
Oh,
My
wow.
my friends, my family, I haven't told anyone about it. There's one peace builder right now, and it's me.
Oh my
And
gosh.
yeah,
Okay.
so I am like so excited about this project. I've been keeping it so close to my heart and making sure that it is exactly aligned with what I've always envisioned, giving back to the communities and to the people. So this is it. This is breaking news.
Yes. Well, thank you. I feel honored that you, shared for the first time here on the podcast
Yes.
Healthy Mom, because I know what it's like when you have something that's so important to you.
Yeah.
And, it's very important just energetically and vibrationally to not, I guess they would say, dilute the energy
Yes.
by
Yeah.
getting feedback or opinions from other people until,
Yeah.
not that you necessarily need that, but it's not until you're really ready to put it out
Yes.
there. And then thank you for allowing me to be the first witness to hear this. And please, I plan on being the second member of this call. So definitely, I will be filling that out and here's what I love about it. A, just kind of like the whole process of what you're doing. But secondly, of course, as a coach, what I look at as the idea of this creating an identity, right? If I call myself a peacemaker, I'm
Yes.
more likely to think like a peacemaker, feel like a peacemaker, act like a peacemaker, right? And so just kind of like the act itself
Yes.
is actually transformational, just going on and doing this and filling this out. And so, what is the process once you go on? Like, what happens?
Yeah, so once you sign up and become a peace builder, then you'll get an email telling, kind of, it gives you the declaration that you're promising to. I
Okay.
think which is really important because I wanted to give meaning. I didn't want people just to sign up to my website and get free resources and tools and stuff like that too. I really want them to learn how to create safer places for their children. And that's what this is all about because when you learn more about the inner process, so when you're parenting your children, your teenagers, your adult children with a little a, not a big A,
Mhm.
they're creating their own stories about themselves, about what love looks like and what belonging looks like and what connection looks like and stuff like that. So I think the more we can introduce information to parents about creating that safe space means that your kids can bring mistakes to you and disappointment
Yeah.
to you and honest conversations to you without fearing that you will withdraw or that love is at risk for them. So, when your child makes a mistake or your teenager makes a mistake and you're just like unconsciously reacting, that is having impact on your teenager. In that moment, they are realizing what love looks like, what being truthful means, what's safe about being truthful and what isn't safe about being truthful. And especially nowadays,
Mm.
teenagers have a lot more access to other places on the internet or at school or wherever they're hanging out. And sometimes those they think are their safest place, but they're not. And so we really want parents to be the safest place for their children.
Yes. Well, I was wondering if while we're talking, if we could actually practice this a little bit because it sounds so great,
Thank
right?
you.
And it's like, how do you get that into actual real life? Because there are so many triggers, right?
Yes.
So, like literally day to day, there's triggers, and the idea that a teen or a young adult can express themselves without, fearing loss or fearing the relationship goes away or whatever that might be. But also, what I find in the families that I work with is there's always this fear of judgment from their parents, right? So, say I'm, a teenager, I'm applying to colleges, and I say, you know what, I'm really interested in becoming a Australian pottery maker. I don't even know if that's a thing. I'm just making something up, right? And so parents' reaction, right? Like, "What? Why are we
Yes.
spending $300,000 for you to go to college, for you to make pottery in Australia?" Like, "What?"
Yeah.
So, like, what would be the ideal reaction to that, knowing that there has to be some boundaries because this is a very expensive way to learn pottery, right? So there's a boundary here. But without kind of shutting them down, how do they feel safe and still loved?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think the first place I start with parents is their nervous system baseline. So what I try to
Mm,
do is I teach them what what pulls them off of their nervous system baseline because it's your nervous system that is creating that response. So are you going into that fight, flight, fear, or fawn, right? And
mhm,
so I work with people to get them very familiar with feeling safe inside themselves. So what fear would that bring up for you? So the fear is spending money on pottery in Australia, and that might not be the best way to use our funds or whatever, right? So, but if you knew that your baseline was I'm calm, centered, and balanced,
mhm,
and I'm going to respond from a place where I feel safe,
mhm.
then how does that conversation change? So it's
Mm,
about getting the nervous system down. And so it goes behavior is the external thing that people see.
Mhm.
And then the first internal process is nervous system. The one before that is emotional triggers. So you were
Mhm.
triggered emotionally in this example, and then your nervous
Mhm.
system responded. And so I
Yeah.
start my work with people at the nervous system because I can't get into beliefs and identity if their nervous system doesn't feel safe talking about it.
Mm. Mhm. Mhm.
And that happens quite a bit. So we learn to work with the nervous system first. And awareness is everything. So
Mm.
parents do not have to be perfect. I'm angry, even though I know where my baseline is. There are still things that upset me and make me angry, but I'm doing so with awareness. And I'm
Mhm.
aware that I'm being angry right now. So it's the upstream method is really helping parents become aware that they are reacting or how are they responding. And with that awareness, then people have choice. Okay, I can choose to respond from this place of fear, possibly from an old wound, or I can choose to respond from my nervous system baseline and from a place of love.
Mm. Yeah. Does your teenager tend to freak out when the new school year is about to start? Well, here's the good news, they don't have to. Sign your teen up for my free webinar called How to Start the School Year Without Freaking Out. We will tackle time management, the skills to handle the stress and pressure of school, social life, social media, and the brain body connection behind stress and focus. Sign them up. The link is in my show notes. They're going to love it. And I kind of want to put it out there and maybe see what you think of this, but I want to make sure the listeners don't think that if they are feeling angry about something that that's wrong. Like I don't want
Yes.
to like necessarily judge the emotion, but more take it as information. For me, when I say there's anger, it's either a boundary has been crossed or love has been lost. Some type
Mm,
of expectation hasn't been met.
yeah.
Kind of like one of those things. And so maybe we take that as information.
Yes.
Then what do we do? Like, kind of go back to finding or reconnecting with our baseline? And how do you walk people through that? Like, going from, "I feel angry. I understand where this is coming from now. I'm gonna reconnect with my, baseline." Like, how do you walk them through that?
It's quite a process. Right now, I have a
Mhm.
course that is a 4-session course. So
Okay.
over 4 sessions, we will find baseline. And I also want to point out too that when I'm coaching my clients, when I get too excited, when I'm above my baseline and my excitement is so over the top, that I also need to remember to bring myself down to baseline because then if I'm too excited, I'm going to make the coaching about myself
Yes.
and how exciting I am or how excited I am. So
Mm.
it's not whether you have bad feelings or good feelings. It's being aware
Mhm.
of what you're feeling and how it's impacting your behavior. So sometimes when
Mm.
I'm coaching and I'm too excited, my behavior will change in the way that I'm starting to make this about me and how happy I am for them or whatever it is. And it's like I'm just better when I'm calm and balanced and grounded.
Mm.
So it's a work. Going back to your question about how to walk kind of people through that process is it
Mhm.
is just meeting people where they're at and showing them the process. I always say you bring the courage, I'll bring the process. So there
Oh.
is a whole kind of map that I walk them through in order to get down to their baseline and to stay there, to know when they're pulled off and to come back. And again, there is never any judgment on my part
Mm.
ever. Like I have no judgment on how people react or how they respond. I feel like my job is to bring awareness to their inner process and then they still get to choose whatever they want, right? There is no right or
Mm.
wrong.
Yeah. I love that you said that too, because I find that people, for some reason, assume about me because my podcast is called the Positively Healthy Mom Podcast,
Yeah.
that I'm a coach. I work with teens and young adults, that somehow I am above them or different from them or separated from
Mhm.
them in some way. And yes, I do have a lot of education and training in these areas, but that doesn't mean that I'm some
Yeah.
perfect mom and that I'm going to judge them on a client call. I always try to let people know, like, for me, like, there is no judgment from me. Like, I'm here as your partner
Yeah.
to help you. And the thing that makes me really happy is when I see them making the progress and I see
Yeah.
them making the change. But it's not about me thinking I'm better or that I'm
Yes.
judging them, right? I always just want to throw that out there because I do sometimes feel concerned that maybe there's like a misconception about me. When I'm a mom, I am just a
Yeah.
mom. I am a regular mom. My kids do not want to be coached, nor do I think that's good for a parent child relationship
Yeah.
to coach them. First of all, you have to have someone's permission to coach them. And most of the time, any teen hearing from their mom does not want to be coached, right? Like that's the whole point of having someone outside the
Yeah.
family, like a neutral third party. So I would be the first person to hire a coach for my team. I'm not going to take on that
Yeah.
role. But there are like you can see how there's like these mixed roles for me where I'm a mom, I'm also a coach for teens, and then I also am this mom on a podcast,
Yeah.
right? And so it's like it all kind of blends together. But I do just love the idea of like what you're saying is like when people come to you, this is a safe environment. It's not about judgment because the truth is we all have triggers.
Yes. Yes.
We all have ways that we were raised that didn't quite suit us, right? Like we all can complain about the way our parents or whoever were our
Yeah.
caregivers raising us, and that has affected us. And so, at the end of the day, we're all kind of on the same footing with
Yeah.
that, right? And so, how can you speak to that a little bit deeper?
Oh, yeah, that I mean, this is like my passion is the human story. We're all human
Mm,
beings and we're all living this human experience and we're all the same. So you might have had a different upbringing than me, but we still had experiences. We still gave those experiences meaning and we developed an identity from that. And then
mm,
we developed beliefs that defend our identity. So there's this whole inner process that is the exact same for every single person. So when people come
mhm,
to me with their stories, it's so different from other methodologies and stuff. So when people come and see me, I'm listening to the patterns that have created kind of where they're at. I'm listening to their inner process. There's
mhm.
no one that can tell me a story about their childhood or about their life that I probably haven't heard yet. And there's no
Mm,
place for judgment. It is like we are all
mhm,
human beings, and there's also no blame. There is absolutely no blame in the work that I do. It's for
mhm,
information, like you were talking about earlier, and for awareness of those things that happened. And my company is called Stacy Greer Coaching and Training. So the work that I do is a lot of teaching and a lot of
mhm,
coaching. And so people are
mm,
understanding the human inner process and how we work as humans. Like I kind of started this podcast off with is we were taught how to read, we were taught how to write, we were taught how to build careers, but we were never really taught how to get to know ourselves and understand ourselves. And I think that that's just so important, and it's part of the bigger mission that I'm trying to do right now.
it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I loved this conversation with Stacey Greer, and trust me, this conversation gets even better. Make sure to tune in next week for part 2, where we'll dive even deeper into our own childhood stories, breaking generational patterns, and how healing our own inner process completely changes the dynamic with our teens. You won't want to miss it, so be sure to follow the show anywhere you get your podcast so it'll show up for you next week. When you get a chance, please go to the show notes and click on the link ratethispodcast.com/tphmom to give my podcast a rating and review. And if this episode resonates with you, be sure to share it with your mom friends who are going through the same things. Be sure to tune in for next week's conversation. Until then, keep up the good work.